All right, we got a good group on. Look at this, man. This thing is growing. Woo, 35 people on now, and more people still joining. Well, if you're not on, you snooze, you lose. So we will get this thing kicked off. And so we will start off with leaderboards for this month. I was looking at the two attachments that you sent over, Chris. I got it here. So we'll pull up the leaderboards for this month, July. I know it's the second, but we're into the already. Today's the last day of the turn-in for the first week of July, and so we will go through the rundown here and see what we got. There it is, finally opened up. So, and then there were quite a few people actually wrote. I think the last week knowing that Chris is who did people did stuff on Friday. Is that what it was? I can't hear you on mute, brother.
Yeah, last Friday turn in.
Yeah, because I don't think they're all on here because I had quite a few people as well. But
yeah, we need to talk about that. I get a report and maybe it only reports on my base shop. I need to circle in with you maybe.
Yeah, no worries. The point is there was a lot of business written last Friday, and it was the last day of turn in for the month of June, which was incredible. And so we'll jump in here and kind of go over the leaderboards here for this week so far, and where we're at. Of course, you still have to the end of the day. One thing to keep in mind as well is that July is a 5-week turn-in. So doesn't necessarily have an impact on net placed, where your promotion guidelines are set on net placed, but where it does come into play is if you're trying to get to that next promotion or leadership level that requires a certain number of writers, that's on submit, right? So you want to make sure that you've got the requisite number of writers, on your team for those particular levels. So, but let's kick it off here, and we will jump into, for this week so far, you got number 10, Miss Joanna Doibin with one app for $681, direct to Mr. Lionel Anderson. And then you've got Miss Sophia Williams with 2 apps for $803, direct to Mr. Marcus Williams. Sydney Lee with 1 app for $901, direct to Stella. At number 7, myself with 3 apps for $1,600. Hold on one second. Did I lose you guys? That's somebody trying to call through. You still there? Number 7, myself with 3 apps for $1,692, direct to Chris. Number 6, Stacy Love, 3 apps. $1,842, direct to Miss Donna Bates. Number 5, Terry Myers with 4 apps for $2,663, direct to Miss Stella. Number 4, Stella herself with 2 apps for $3,018, direct to Chris. Number 3, Spencer Cushion with 3 apps for $3,351, direct to Chris. Bringing in the top 2, number 2, Miss Jennifer Gray with 5 apps for $4,460, direct to myself. And then number 1 for the week, on his run, pushing for his first month of AO qualifications, leading from the front, Mr. Eric Sullivan with 7 apps for $8,300.37, direct to myself. Great job, everybody there on the leaderboards for this first week of July turn-in. And we'll pull up the leaderboards for last month. Let this, there it goes. So we'll run down here and, man, this list is long, man. We actually had 36 unique writers as a master agency, right? And Chris's whole overall organization, 36 unique writers for 232 apps for $225,645.67. And so we will jump in here with the top 10, and what a you know what we'll do. Well, since we were at the end of the month, let's jump into the top 15, because in order to make the top 10, you had to write more than 10 grand, because everybody in the top 10 wrote 10 grand or more in the organization. So let's start with number 15. We got Sydney Lee with 10 apps for $6,448, direct to Stella. Number 14, newbie on the block and killing it. Love her spirit, love her energy and focus, Miss Joanna Doibin, 9 apps, $6,629, direct to Mr. Lionel Anderson. Number 13, Andrew McKinley, 6 apps for $6,979, direct to Chris Menifee. Number 12, another new guy, Derek McPherson, 4 apps, $7,438 direct to myself. Number 11, Mr. Brad Higgins, 1 app, capped, $7,500 capped direct to Mr. Eric Sullivan. The APV on that was actually, I think, $10,000 or $11,000 adjusted. So that was a nice app. So the payout still pays on that. It's just for promotion guidelines, caps at 7,500. So great job, Brad. Number 10, David Moan with 6 apps for $8,326 direct to Stella. Number 9, these are all 10 grand or more. Donna Bates, 10 apps for $10,504 direct to Mr. Spencer Kujan. Number 8, Mr. Part-Time himself, James McKeon, 11 apps for $10,736 direct to myself. Number 7, Lionel Anderson, leading his group from the front, 13 apps for $12,094 direct to myself. Number 6, Miss Stacy Love on a tear, 14 apps, $12,388 direct to Ms. Donna Bates. Number 5, Mr. Eric Sullivan with 14 apps, $12,533 direct to myself. And number 4, myself, 10 apps, $14,292 direct to Chris Menifee. Number 3, Natalie Hermit. Miss Natalie, don't call me Natalie Hermit. Natalie, Miss, I wish Scott May could pronounce my name, Hermit. 14 apps for $16,783 direct to Mr. Eric Sullivan. Number 2, Stella, don't call me Stelly Dinwiddie. 15 apps for $17,066 direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. And then there can only be number 1, and she's no stranger to this spot and being at the top of the leaderboards on a regular basis, just killing the game. Love this lady. Number 1, Miss Jennifer Gray, 29 apps, $25,282.44 direct to myself. So great month there. And just wanted to let me pull this up here real quick. Just give a shout out to everybody that went out there and protected families last month. I mean, we just had a monster month overall. It was just incredible all the way around. We added so many new writers across the agency. We had a lot of new people that were in the mix, a lot of people contributing, protecting families. And then my team specifically, just kudos to everybody. I mean, just really stepping up. You know, we wrote over almost $137,000 in APV as a team in a 4-week turn-in. Our previous record on a 5-week turn-in was right at 140, 139 and some change. So 130, almost 137,000 and a 4-week turn-in, and just so many emerging leaders on this team, and just so proud of everybody on my group. And I just wanted to definitely tell everybody how blessed I am to be on this journey with you and be in business with each of you. I'm just blown away and I'm just so excited about what this is going to look like for each of you over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's it for leaderboards. So I want to pass it to Chris real quick, and then we'll get Stella on for a moment, and then we'll move into the topic for the day. Chris, you had something you wanted to add, brother?
Yeah, I mean, first, let's what you just touched on there. Shout out to your team. 4-week turn in, high watermark for you guys, and several things about that. I mean, obviously, anytime we hit a high watermark in a 4-week turn in, that's something to celebrate. But you guys, so, my agency basically is broken up into 3 parts. It's the Vetter agency, the Dinwiddie agency, and then my base shop. But the Vetter agency beat the combined base shop and Dinwiddie agency. So hats off to you guys for going out and just crushing it. We, and on top of that, we, as I looked at the numbers, everybody knows John Paul Vetter can go out and knock down $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 on his own pen. But that number, that 37,000, was actually with John Paul, greatly restricted on his writing with everything that's going on. So, and that's good, because, we've talked a lot about that, John Paul, is, when you get to the point where your business is no longer dependent on your volume of APV coming in,
right?
There's nothing wrong with continue writing that, but when your business can grow without you having to be the be the catalyst for that, that's huge. And so, shout out to all the people on your team that are really stepping up. Eric is hit team leader and definitely on a run to key leader, and then on AO. Maybe let's see about what we can do. Just jump key leader and go straight to AO. That would be a pretty cool feat right there. Jenny, hey, top rider. What's that? No, sorry, I thought you had something to say. Jenny, top rider, and one of the things, Jenny, just a shout out to you, because when I look at your business for the month, and guys, this is a key. I looked at her business. She wrote 29 apps. She by far outpaced everybody on app counts. And if you want to know how to write a lot of APV, focus on how many apps you write. And as I actually pulled up the list, I was kind of curious. Well, did Jenny knock down some $5,000-$10,000 cases and that took her up? No, most of them were under $1,000. There were a handful that were above. So obviously it averaged out. She wound up in the high 20s on APV. But if you look at each case, some of them were $150. Some of them were 500. Some of them, were 1,500, 2,000. But the bulk of the cases were not monster cases, but she just went out and wrote a lot of them. And so hats off, Jenny, for really putting in that kind of activity. And guys, for anybody that's looking for how do I get, to 20,000, to 25, to 30, to 40,000 of APV, it's not going out and knocking down $10,000 cases. You can do that, but don't be whale hunting. Just go out and help a bunch of families with a bunch of policies, and you'll get there. So shout out to all you guys on the John Paul Vetter team. Just really hats off for a great month. Excited to see where you guys are going. And guys, just quick plug. We're doing all this with we're doing this all, to use a car analogy, John Paul, you'll appreciate this. We're doing this on running off 4 cylinders on a V8 engine because we haven't got the tuning that we need from conference. So this is my little plug. Get the conference to fire off on all cylinders. Make sure that you're there in Knoxville, guys, and see how the rest of this year rounds out. You think this is good. Wait till you get all the tools in your toolbox that you need to be able to take this to the next level. And you're going to see some numbers that, quite frankly, are going to, make what we're doing right now look like amateur hour. So I'm excited for that because we haven't had one for 2 years. So this is time to get tuned up and get ready to go. We'll be running some contests. I was actually, we had a overview here in Springfield, Missouri last night. Got a great chance to hang out with Andrew Jimenez, came in from Phoenix, Arizona. Andrew and his team is just crushing it. We got to talk shop a little bit, come up with some ideas. Sarah Reineke is probably one of the fastest rising agency owners in the company right now. Their numbers are growing exponentially, and what she's achieving in a short period of time is just phenomenal. Anyway, the point being, got some great ideas. We're going to be running some contests. We're going to be doing some things. In fact, I'm putting together one for July, starting July 1, which was yesterday. But hey, go ahead and be putting in the business. I don't have the details finalized yet, but don't worry about it. It'll be good. Just go ahead and start writing business and you'll be happy you did. So we'll get that announced by early next week. And it's going to be something that everybody can qualify for. This is not going to be just the top 1 or 2. This is going to be something that can be broad-based, that a lot of people are going to be able to qualify for some pretty cool gifts. So anyway, I think that's all I have. So I'll toss it back to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. And and to that point, I want to, it's hard for me to recognize and call out every individual person because I've got so much momentum in my organization that I'm so excited about. But I definitely want to call a shout out to Miss Natalie Herman as well. I've got to check the numbers to confirm, and of course I can't make the official announcement. That's a Symmetry deal. But if I'm not mistaken, she qualified her numbers already for team leader also, and is chopping away at key leader right under Eric on his team. So there may be a 1-2 punch coming back to back for AO runs right there. And Eric should have already qualified last month on his first month for key leader, but looking to obviously post up AO numbers last month. I mean, so we got to get the final numbers, with the net place and such like that. So when I meant by the first month of key leader, it would have been the previous month. So we'll see. I mean, so the point is there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot of energy and a lot of folks gaining momentum here. And people that have just recently started have already started not only right business, but they're already asking for, Joanna Doyman, Lionel called me yesterday. She's wanting to jump in on the career builder ads on my future AOs team to start recruiting. And folks that have just recently started joining the team wanting to know, how do they get tickets for somebody they want to bring with them to conference and such like that, right? And so the point is there's just so much going on right now, and the rising tides raise all ships, right? So anyway, just outstanding job overall. So I just definitely want to give a shout out there specifically.
Yeah, and John Paul, if I get one other thing, and you mentioned we got so much going on, I don't want to give an oversight here. Also, we need to give a shout out to Donna Bates, who qualified as team leader. Donna, man, it's just heads down, running hard, and our little engine that could. She just keeps chugging away. Has battled through trying to figure some things out in this business, but man, you want to talk about a picture of consistency, and just keep coming back and figuring things out. And she is definitely you're seeing it. I mean, anytime you get, I don't care if it's the first level promotion, team leader, key leader, anything that you hit in this business is a sign that you're going the right direction. So hats off, Donna, for hitting that.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, in the point, you hear individuals, who are getting recognition is whether it's the AO's production or as AO or key leader, team leader, that you can't do those things by yourself, right? You can make elite producer and top producer on your own pen. That's the point. But you can't make AO and you can't make key leader and you can't do these other things. So when agencies are called out, that's all of you. It's in you're coming next. Right. So it's everything you're doing that's building for you to break out and then have your own individual team recognized. But the point is, it's all rolling up. And that's the beauty of this system, right? Is because you can't get there alone. Right. And so we're all on this journey together. Nobody here works for anyone else. You work with us. And there's a big difference in those two statements. Right. So anyway, appreciate everybody for sure. I do want to one other housekeeping note, remind everybody. And I saw the flyer circulating. We'll get it reposted if we haven't posted on our crew. But for July 22nd, there's a big corporate overview here in Atlanta. So if you're anywhere in the Atlanta, Georgia area, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, North, South Carolina, anywhere on the side, we're gonna have a huge corporate overview with Jacob Pogue and Sarah Reineke is going to be there, Andrew Jimenez and myself. There's going to be a lot of other people as well, other top AOs, but just a great opportunity for you to use it as a stepping stone for the big conference in Knoxville, and recruiting to that. If for some reason you can't make it there specifically for one reason or another, you say you live in California, right? And that's not feasible because you're coming to Knoxville, but that doesn't mean if you should have a recruit or somebody in the area, you should be driving them to this event, because we in the system will do the heavy lifting for you, right? They're still your people, but send them there. I mean, if they're on your team, they're on our team. So make sure they come and introduce themselves. We know who they are. Let us know they're coming, so we have a chance to talk to them. Because we'll help solidify their commitment to this opportunity. Because by us helping you build your team, builds our teams. You know what I mean? So, Stella, did you have anything you want to add real quick from a leader perspective?
I would absolutely love to, because I love hearing you guys talk about all the momentum, because the momentum is building up everywhere. And I'm so excited, so blessed to be here. I tell you, this opportunity only gets better. We have, this last month I saw, because I know that you guys talk about your own teams. And so I want to make sure that my team, that they can hear this, that, I'm so proud of every one of them. Bob, Palatroni and Heather Geidinger. I know that she's out taking care of her horses, but those two made the list for the top 10 writers this past month. And Bob in his first month wrote 5,124, and Heather wrote 4,000 in their first month. And then I've got a new guy, Mark Edwards. I'm so excited for him. I've got Terry, people coming to our conference. Like, I'm so glad you brought up conference. And I just want to piggyback on that, because conference, I can't express how important it is. I still have notes from the very first conference that I went to that I go back and I review. And I've got Terry and Bob who bought their own owners packs. Got Dave going, Liz and Chase and Greg going. I'm so proud of you guys for, already showing all of your, securing your tickets. And that puts you ahead in our Cabo contest. And so I'm really excited about that. I've got some people already in the lead, but that's gonna, that Cabo contest is gonna go on for several months, all the way up through November. So I'm super excited about that. And I just want to make mention about Greg Aist. We had another couple of amazing retirement solutions meetings with a couple of my clients, and we're going to go back and help them when they come back from vacation. And I'll tell you, if you're looking for you've got a family with retirement solutions that you can help them with an annuity, Greg Aist is amazing. He's also on our quality team, or quality, team. And I'm so excited about that. And yes, those corporate overviews, my team knows that I sent out all the links. So just look for the location closest to you. So thank you so much. I'm just so blessed and grateful to be here. I tell you, you don't have to be great to start here. You just have to start to get great.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. And so what we do want to talk about today, we'll transition into the topic of the day. So just all great stuff, right? How many people, and some people, his camera's on, some aren't, but how many people were on the POG Hierarchy Builders call yesterday? Right? So I spoke on that yesterday, and we talked about conference, right? So make sure, and I think most of the people I can see on here, at least for my organization, they already have their tickets and rooms and plane tickets or whatever is, means of transportation already arranged. So great stuff. But make sure you're promoting that all the way through conference. We'll find a way to get tickets for people, come hook or crook, right? So awesome. So what I want to talk about today is, and again, because we have so many new people on the team, and I've done trainings on this at least a couple, 2-3 times over the course of the last couple of years. And it's always relevant, it's always beneficial, but it's been a while since we've done one. I know the recordings are archived, but you can't always go back and find the specific one you want to look at and such, and some of the new people may not know necessarily to leverage those resources. But again, I want to use this as not only an opportunity for us to talk about some things today, but also make sure that you understand the resources that you have available at your disposal to self-educate. Both on the Symmetry website, on HQ, regardless of the topic, or whether it's appointment setting, overcoming objections, connecting with the client, all those different things. You don't have to wait for a call, to have a specific topic discussed. And more importantly, you don't have to continue to struggle with your skill set because you don't know what to say or do. Be resourceful and go find a way to figure it out, right? Whether that's connecting with your mentor or watching videos. I love the fact that and I don't remember exactly what it was. I was actually driving the other day, but I saw there was something that Joanna was needing some assistance on, and she went and found the recording and watched it and then shared it with everybody on crew, right? So the point is, those resources are available. Whether you're leveraging those or not is completely dependent on you, because no one's going to babysit you to do it, right? So if there's things that you need help on, find the resources to get better, right? As we always say in this business, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And the only way you're going to get better is if you're committed to that, right? So anyway, so I wanted to use this as an opportunity to reference all the resources, and they're free. Absolutely, Joanna. They're all free. It costs nothing. It's just part of being on this journey, right? So where else can you go get an education that can directly impact this amount of income or this amount of of potential, and it not cost you anything except hustle and sweat equity, right? And a license, right? So anyway, so today what I want to talk about really is just kind of, really all the ways you can help cover your clients' needs. And I'm not going to go in depth specifically by carrier and all that, because everybody has their own favorite products and carriers. It's your responsibility to call the carrier and work with their sales support team to understand the nuances specific to that carrier, because American Amicables might be different than Mutual of Omaha, whatever that might be, right? And to that point, you guys all know that each of these carriers, every insurance company has a sales support desk, and their job and their functional role 100% is to be there to field your phone calls, to ask them questions, right? That's their job. Help you do illustrations, answer your questions about products. What does this mean? What does that mean? What is it? Use those resources, right? So make sure you're doing that as well. But the point of, I want to kind of talk high level about all the things, because I know we get wrapped up in focusing on mortgage protection and final expense, right? Those are kind of the main things we look at, right? But how do you build value to the client, but also increase your monthly premium and APV by incrementally, right? And we'll talk about things like disability income riders and waiver premiums for unemployment. What does that mean, right? Children's policies. Some people may not realize that we can actually write vision and dental plans through Mutual of Omaha. I've written several of those. They had a contest, I don't know, a year or two ago, where they did vision and dental plans through Mutual of Omaha, and I got like an extra $250 bonus check from them because I'd written a handful of them during the little contest period, right? And it was purely coincidence, but if you're not having the conversations with your clients, maybe they're self-employed, maybe they've got medical insurance, but they don't have vision and dental, or whatever the case may be. Have these conversations with your clients as appropriate, because you'll find yourself writing significantly more apps, and the APV starts to head up, right? So those who don't know, we do long-term care and med subs. Get your certifications, do whatever you need to do if those situations arise, so that you can be able to help clients in those conversations, right? Children's policies, you should be talking about children's policies in every appointment. Whether you use something from Foresters or Mutual of Omaha, the point is, every client that has kids, you should be writing policies for them, right? If they don't already have policies, that's hugely important. But if you just go in there focusing on mortgage protection and you patting yourself on the back because you got a mortgage protection policy, you could have left a lot of other business on the table, because they didn't even know you could have done their kids, and they would have signed up in a heartbeat, but you didn't even bring it up, right? So that's just one of the things. So while we're there, let's talk about that as an example, right? For Mutual of Omaha, you can write up to 8 kids on one application. Now you put it into opt 8 different times for each kid's name. So that's 8 applications. So let's talk about helping your conversion rates, right? But also talk about the cohesiveness of the client. By the time you write the husband and the wife and a disability income policy and 6 of their kids, now you protected the whole family, right? And now instead of writing a policy and it's $1,100 a month in APV, and all of a sudden it's $1,800 or $2,000, and they'll spend the money because they see the value in what it provides to their family. So make sure you're researching these coverages to know how to present them to the client and the value proposition. As an example, for the Mutual of Omaha's children's policy, some of the things that I do like about that one, it's quick and easy. It's relatively inexpensive. You can get policy for $6, $8, $10, $15, $20 a month, right? Up to $50,000 in face value, to start with. And a lot of people think, well, I don't know if I don't need that much. I don't want to think about my child passing or something. Trust me, none of us want to ever think about that. But unfortunately, if you watch the news every night, those things happen, right? And you want to make sure that you've got coverage for your kids just in case. But it's even more important that those are whole life policies, right? And they do build cash value, and it's not a ton, but as they go to college, they may need $1,000 to take out for something. It's an emergency, and they've got that available to them. But to me, the main things that are appealing to that Mutual of Omaha one that I really like are these 2 things. One, it provides for if the owner of the policy, the parent, passes and there's still a kid, Mutual of Omaha waives the premiums on that policy until that child is an adult. So the policy won't lapse. Okay. Secondly, it provides guaranteed insurability for life. So in other words, if you get a policy on a kid that's 2 years old and God forbid they develop childhood leukemia, or if so, there's some kind of medical concern when they're 7, 8 years old, and now they've been cured, they're in remission, no other issues, and now they're 25, 28 years old, getting married and have their own baby, and now they want to get a mortgage protection or some kind of life insurance policy. Well, if they have the Mutual of Omaha one, all they do is call them and increase the face value of the policy and pay the new premium. It's guaranteed approved. There's no need to provide proof of insurability. There's no paramed exams, nothing. Whereas if they never had that when they were a child and now they're 28 years old with that medical history, trying to call one of us to get coverage, kind of not in a good place, right? As far as being able to help them. So that's huge right there, that for the fact that it's guaranteed insurability. That's another big one that I like with that one specifically. The other thing are the disability income riders, right? So I think sometimes when we go into appointments, we focus on the mortgage protection, and rightfully so. That's what they filled it out for. But the letter also mentions in case you're out of work due to illness or accident or whatever. And sometimes we glaze right over that. A lot of times we don't even talk about it, right? And I think what people do, they get so wrapped up in got to make a sale, got to make a sale, got to make a sale. I don't want it to be too much. So I want to try to get as low a premium as I can. And if the policy is for the mortgage protection is $100, but with a disability income rider is 140, I don't want to spoil the deal. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Present both options to the client, because the fact that they may be concerned about, if I pass away, I want the house paid off for my wife and kids. That's important to them. But they're equally concerned about, well, what if I'm in an accident, in a car wreck, or if I come down sick and I'm out of work for a year, I could lose my house and not be able to help my family. And also I didn't pass away, but I still lost my house. Whereas if they have something like that with a disability income rider, and there's two different ones, you can do an accident only or total, which is accident and illness. A lot of carriers will provide both options. For the cost difference, I always like to do just both, whether it's accident or sickness. Now, depending on their health conditions, like if they're diabetic and smoke, some carriers say that combination, they can't do, the sickness disability rider, but they'll do accident only. So that's what I mean by call the carriers and understand the nuances here. But the fact of the matter is, if you explain to that client that, hey, Mr. Johnson, the mortgage coverage to pay off your house for X amount of face value is $100 a month. But with a $1,500 disability income rider that would cover your $1,400 mortgage payment for up to 2 years, if you were out due to illness or injury, it's only $138.75. And I know your main concern, you said, because you had a friend of yours that got hurt on the job and lost their house last year, right? This would prevent that from happening. And it's tax-free. There's, insurance is non-taxed, right? And this is aside from any workers' comp or anything like that, because workers' comp is only while they're at work, right? And something happens on the job. If they're in a car wreck on the way to work, that doesn't cover anything, right? So the point is, you need to make sure you understand and can explain these coverages to the client so they understand the value there. Because sometimes, exactly, everyone spends where they see value. I saw the note from Eric on the comments. So the key is, you may actually lose a sale because you're focused on the mortgage protection and they're moderately concerned about it. But I don't know. I see it, but I'm not. But you present the disability income, and that's the hot button for that person. And that's their main concern. And now they're willing to spend $140 to get all of it. Whereas you would have lost it, let me think about it, for $100 because I didn't know that that was part of the deal. And that's actually what concerns me and keeps me up at night. But you never talked about it. So you leave money on the table and you leave people unprotected, right? So make sure you're having these conversations with the client, and you can do standalone disability income policies in addition to the riders on some carriers, depending on, like if you do John Hancock, there's no disability rider, but you could do Mutual of Omaha's. They used to call it Priority Income Protection. Now it's called Mutual Income Solutions. You can't get the quote on the Quotes for Sales Professional app like you used to. You've got to go into the eApp portal on a Mutual of Omaha site, and then when you go into the app, then you plug all the parameters and it calculates it for you, kind of like a WinFlex deal, but it's in the portal to get your numbers on that, right? And that's accident, you know, so the point is you can do different amounts, the coverage period, those kinds of things. Educate yourself on those, because there's some people on this call right now, I'm bringing this up and you have no idea what I'm talking about. And that's fine. That's why we're talking about it, right? Because you're drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information for you to learn, and you want to build the foundation, you know, with mortgage protection and final expense. That's your fundamental blocking and tackling. But if you're writing 10 grand a month or $8,000 a month with that, if you start to add these other things, now you're writing 12 or 13, 14,000. And now that adds up over the course of the year. It's a significant amount of money in commissions, but also your APV, promotions, and more people protected. And the more coverages people have for themselves that mean more to them, the less likely they are to ever give them up or get a charge back or let the policy lapse, right? So the other things on there are waiver of premium for disability. There's some companies that if the person's permanently disabled, it will waive the premiums on the policy for them. That's another one that you should look into. Also, the waiver of premium for unemployment, right? So what that means is if somebody loses their job, right? You know, if they're eligible for state unemployment benefits, not because they got fired off because they slapped their boss, right? You can't get unemployment, right? But my point is that if you quit, you know, for whatever, if you're collecting state unemployment benefits, is what most carriers define it as, then you're eligible to submit that to the insurance company. If you have a waiver of premium rider, then they will waive the premiums on the policy while you're out. I had a guy call me last week and just swear up and down he thought it meant it would pay all of his bills because his wife lost her job because she's unemployed, and that's just not the case, right? So the key is making sure that you understand how these work and explain to the client, right, the right way. But it's waiver premium for unemployment, so they don't let the policy lapse if they're out of work for 6 months while they're trying to find a new job, right? And usually those kinds of things only add maybe $2 or $3 to the policy. It's not much. Play around in there and see what it does for those things. But the point is, the more value you add to the policy, the more cohesive the client is, right? And it adds up. You might not think that $2 or $3 here and $5 here adds up, but you start writing 29 apps, and all of a sudden you've got an extra couple of $1,000s in APV for the month, which may or may not make the difference in you getting promoted to the next commission level or making AO or key leader because of the requisite APV requirements, right? You miss a promotion by $300, you know, in a net place business, you're going to realize how important all those little incremental small sales are. It all adds up, right? So again, I don't intend for this to be a completely immersive education on every little nuance, because again, different companies define them differently, right? But I want to make sure that each of you understand that these are available, and you need to self-educate and be able to present these to your clients, because it does add value to them. And anybody who's been here for a length of time, you know, who's seen when I was, you know, writing 30, 40, 50 grand a month in the field, I would give these long posts on Crew about disability DI rider, waiver premium for the blah, blah, and it all adds up, and it's consistently, people want this, people need it. More people will buy it than you think if you present it to them the right way and you educate them and you're able to provide the value proposition and what this means to them, on top of just the mortgage protection if I pass away, right? So that's that part. And now that I want to shift gears and be mindful of time. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I get a lot of questions on this, and this is really a paramount conversation for elderly clients and such. And there seems to be some confusion. Sometimes people don't necessarily understand what critical period or equity protection strategy really means. So I want to kind of describe that a little bit and how I leverage it and how it helps people, right? Because sometimes we'll get the elderly client that has a $180,000 mortgage, you know, and they're 74 years old, and they think they're going to get, you know, 200 grand coverage for, you know, $50 a month. And we know that's not possible, right? Or their medical or health concerns, you know, will not allow that. But so the point is, what we want to do is things that I use in my conversation with clients like that, to start to build credibility and confidence in their perception of me And what I can do for them is I let them know that I specialize in equity protection strategies or budget conscious policies for seniors, right? That's why I was assigned the case file for you, Ms. Johnson, right? I say these things to the client because I want them to think and know that I specialize in these kinds of things. And I help thousands of clients a month all over the country, me and my team, right? Do exactly what you're wanting to accomplish. So I hear what you're saying, but in this case, let me ask you this, and I'll role play a little bit. What's the fair market value of the house that you've got, Ms. Johnson? Well, it's about $300,000 and you owe 120 on it now, correct? Awesome. So you have $180,000 equity in this property, right? So what we want to do is make sure that that equity is left in your family as legacy wealth or generational wealth. You worked your whole life for that. You don't want the bank to steal that as profit, right? So I know sometimes people have a tendency to think that they need something to pay the entire amount off. And even if we could get that for somebody that's 74, it might be prohibitively expensive, right? But I've implemented a strategy with my clients that they found works extremely well. Or you can use a feel, felt, found, right? Ms. Johnson, I know exactly how you feel, right? I've had lots of clients that have felt the same way. And what they found is that leveraging the strategy that I'm going to share with you and help you and your family with today, it did exactly what they wanted to accomplish at a fraction of the price, right? So you talk about equity protection strategy. So Ms. Johnson, so you've got $180,000 of equity in the house, right? That's the prize, right? You want to leave that to your kids and grandkids. The insurance money is important, but let me explain this to you. We all know somebody that's lost some land, property, or a house to the bank, whether recently or back in the day, somebody great something or another, because somebody passed away and the family could not keep up with the payments on that place for a few months, and the bank foreclosed on it. And not only took the property, but they took all the equity as profit for the bank, right? And get them to agree with you and shake your head, because they know, they probably heard of it, or they know somebody that's happened to, right? Think how much different that family's legacy or generational wealth would have been, or their current status now, had they been able to keep that in their family from the 1960s or back in the 70s. Be a lot different, right? Get them to see the vision and understand what you're talking about. So let me ask you this. They lost it not because they didn't have $120,000 to pay it off, because that's not what the bank wants when you pass away, right? They just want next month's $1,000 mortgage payment. And you have to know that. You have to have asked that question early on to know, but I'm gonna keep the math simple for our conversation, right? So they just want next month's $1,000 mortgage payment, right, Ms. Johnson? Absolutely. So what if your family had $25,000 or $30,000 to give them 2.5 years worth of mortgage payments to be able to cover it, so they can decide what they want to do, so that they can be able to sell the house for fair market value. They're not forced into a situation where they're selling it on a short sale. They're not having some predatory purchaser come in and give them 60 cents on the dollar to bail them out of a bad situation because they think they're going to lose the house in 6 weeks at court if they don't pay it off, right? But if your family's got a couple of years worth of mortgage payments, they can sit back and breathe. They can grieve the loss of a loved one and take time to figure out what they want to do. And that's what those other people that you knew that lost their property didn't have. And that was just cushion money, enough to be able to figure out what they wanted to do. Now, if we got you a policy for $25,000 or $30,000, that's considerably more affordable. We'll look at some numbers here in just a second to come up with a plan that you feel good about that fits your budget, okay? But the benefit is twofold. One, you've got money to put in the bank so they can decide what they want to do. Maybe fix the place up, find a rock star realtor, wait for the right buyer to come in that's going to give you top dollar for the house your family benefits the most from the equity in your property, right? You see these tie downs I'm using with her. I want her to agree with me every step of the way, to buy into what I'm saying to her, because I'm educating the client. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm educating the client as to how this can help them, because I'm going to empower Ms. Johnson to make her own decision about what she feels is best for her, because people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. I don't ever sell anybody anything. I educate my clients as to what options are available. And more importantly, I look at it through the lens as if I'm talking to Ms. Johnson, if that's my mom. If that was my grandmother, what am I going to say to her? Given all the cards that she's dealing me with, medical and situation, all that, I'm seeing it through that lens. And no matter what, if you always do right by people, you can't ever be wrong, period. Even if they don't do business with you. But most of them will, because they know you're genuine, right? So to come back to what I was saying, and the other piece of that for critical period is it gives you money to be able to have breathing room. Time is what it buys you to figure out what you want to do. And let's say you owe 120 now, Ms. Johnson, right? And so you have $180,000 in equity. Let's say, God forbid, and look, it's not a question of if, it's when. We all going to go home one day, right? I've done the research, and statistically speaking, 100% of us ain't gonna make it out of here alive, right? It's just about when, not if. So when that happens, let's say you only owe $80,000 on the house. So now you got $220,000 or more because property values keep going up, right? I'm getting her to buy in and agree with me. Hear my tones and my inflection and the way I'm directing this conversation. Because I'm having her see the future of what the property values will increase to be. And let's say you only owe $80,000 on the house, and God forbid you're called home and you pass. Okay? And you had a $30,000 policy. Well, your son, Michael, he can either just continue to make the $1,000 mortgage payments for 2.5 years or more till he can figure out what he wants to do, or he could call the bank and say, look, my mom passed. It was left to me in the will and probate, and she owed 80 grand on the house. Here's $30,000 from her final expense / equity protection / mortgage protection policy. I want to pay down the 80 grand and refinance the other $50,000. Now Michael's got a $342 a month mortgage payment on that house. It's worth over 300 grand, not a $1,000 a month note. Now you see how he can keep the house and not worry about losing it. You can't rent an apartment for $300. So you want to keep a $300,000 house for $300. It's not about full payoff. You got to shift people's gears mentally in the way they see this. A $20,000 or $25,000 or $30,000 policy makes all the difference in the world of them keeping that property in their family. And that's how you have to tee this up and get the people to understand how that's truly, and that policy may be $150, $140, whatever, $180, $200. But if you can't afford a $150 a month payment, how is your spouse? And you can look at it the same way. If it's not necessarily a son, maybe it's a surviving spouse. Maybe it's a man who's retired and they both get Social Security, and the majority of their household income is generated from his retirement benefits. Well, if he passes, when he passes, there's either a complete reduction of his benefits completely disappear, or is significantly reduced, right? Because it no longer flows through to her in the same amount because he's gone, right? So her income is impacted. How are you going to afford a $1,000 a month mortgage payment if you no longer have his income? What's she going to do? But if you have this policy, she can do the same thing I just shared, the same story with you about Michael, and refinance the difference for a much, much lower payment, stay in the house and not worry about losing it. So these are all things you've got to steer the conversation with the customer, and you should be writing a significantly higher number of these. They're final expense policies, but you're not really using that verbiage. You're using equity protection strategy and critical period coverage, depending on what's important to the client. But they're the same thing, right? But as part of that, you've got to be asking the client if they have funeral services already paid for. Maybe they have a prepaid plan. Maybe they don't. Maybe they have nothing. Well, services are $15,000, $18,000, maybe $6,000, $7,000 if you're going to do cremation or whatever that's going to look like for somebody. But conservatively, say 15 grand. That's got to be paid by somebody at some point. And if you can't afford $180 a month, where's 15 grand going to come from to pay for a service after you lose somebody unexpectedly? You're going to be doing a fish fry at the church or a GoFundMe account, or calling family to chip in. No, call family to chip in on $100 a month. That's what you call them to do. Don't wait to try to call the family for 15 grand. I mean, this is what I do, and I've had that happen with people in my own family. You could have called me years ago, and I could have helped you with something different, right? So the point is, don't be afraid to have these conversations with people and be honest with people. If you're honest and you're genuine, they feel that. They know that you have their best interest at heart, because you should. And if you don't, you need to get out of this business. Look at it through the lenses if that was your family. And people feel it. They know when you're being honest with them. And now, is everybody going to step up and buy? Is everybody going to buy in? Is everybody? No. But you're doing the right thing. And that's all you can do. And most people will see that. And especially if you're giving them the ability to make the decision about what they feel is important to fit their budget and show them different options. Because it's the same whether it's 12,000 or 15,000 or 18 or 32,000. It's the same concept and strategy, right? To pay down the mortgage on a refi or to give them time from a monthly perspective to keep up with the bills without having to worry about losing the house right after you lost a loved one. You know what I mean? So those are very important. You understand that, and if you establish your rapport with your clients and that credibility with them early on, then they know everything that you're saying is true, and you're doing the right thing by them. But that's in the rapport building up front and the presentation when you connect with people, right? That's a whole nother conversation. And with time here, I want to make sure we at least kind of get the gears turning, that you're thinking about these strategies, how to put these in place. Hopefully you've taken some notes and look at the different options that we've got available. And when you're looking at that e-app and it says, DI writer on there to check that box or not, you know what that means. And you can show the client. I share my screen with the client. I have two screens. I have my iPad here that I'm talking to them, and I have my computer logged into my agent portal, and I'm sharing that screen. So when I'm running the quotes, I'm actually checking waiver premium unemployment, and I recalculate. See, that only adds $2.04, Mr. Johnson, right? And disability income at $1,500, there you go, bam. So they see it live, the numbers, so they're in the driver's seat on this entire conversation, right? And I'll do it for you however you want me to do it. And I tell them, look, I'm not here to sell you anything. My job is to educate you on what's available and make sure you understand how this can help you and your family. You tell me what you feel fits your budget. Is that fair enough, Mr. Johnson? So anyway, I tried to kind of incorporate some conversations directly to you all, but kind of bounce back and forth with a mock role play, like the same way I would engage a client when I'm in an appointment with them, so you can kind of see how to connect those dots there. So anyway, any questions? We got a couple of minutes, but I'll open it up here real quick. And Chris, or start with Chris or Stella. Anything you want to add into that conversation? Bueller.
John Paul, you're so awesome. I love what you covered. The only thing that I would add is one time you hosted a call when I was a few months new into this, and you actually shared your screen with your families and showed them, how to modify it by adding the waiver premium and the disability. And on my Zoom calls, because I'm 100% remote, I love doing that. I learned that from a call, and it's highly valuable. So if you're on Zooming, you can share your screen, and that's a great time to say, hey, you know what, if this premium doesn't work for you, let's go ahead and modify it for you so we can get it in that price range that works for you. And sometimes they're like, can you go higher? So I love what you covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that when I'm running those numbers, I tell the client, and I use my cursor on the screen to circle the premium section. I said, ultimately, Ms. Johnson, that number right there, we want to make sure that that's something you feel good about. Okay. So they know what they're looking at. So Chris, anything you want to add to that, brother?
Yeah, that's all great there. One question that I always found very helpful, especially when you get a husband and wife scenario, is you want to ask them, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and ask them each individually, Mrs. Johnson, if Mr. Johnson passes away, are you going to keep the house? Are you going to stay here? And the funny thing is, a lot of times they don't talk about it. And it's very, very common. The guys just think everything's going to be the same and things are going to go on. The ladies kind of, they process, and they will stop and think about it. And a lot of times you'll see surprise on the husband's face when the wife says, no, I wouldn't keep the house. Because she's thinking ahead, and she's like, well, okay, this is a bigger house than I need. I don't want to take care of the lawn care. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And that's going to nip a lot of objections for you, because again, a lot of times the guys think, we got to pay this house off. We got to get it down to zero so she can stay here forever. And she's saying, even if the house is paid off, I don't want to keep it. So that automatically turns that critical period conversation back in your favor, because you can say, you're going to sell the house anyway. Why in the world would we pay it off, spend a whole lot of money at your age for us to try to put together a policy that's going to pay it off, when all we really need to do is keep it paid long enough until you can get it sold, protect your equity, and move on down the road and get into a more affordable place.
No, absolutely. That's good stuff. Open it up to the floor. We've got about 2 minutes, maybe a question or two, anything anybody wants to bring up from the collective. Dang, was that good? No questions?
I have a quick question. Can you hear me, John?
Oh, no more questions. Thank you. Oh.
Ah!
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I've been running into a lot lately is families that already have significant life insurance policies already. And in their minds, they've already allocated money for the mortgage. So they may have a $500,000 policy, $100,000 mortgage, and they say, oh, well, my spouse will pay that off. And then they'll still have, $400,000 to live on. So why do I need this?
So
And
why
so I
did you fill
go
it
through
out?
some things, but
So when you got the letter in the mail and explained to you exactly what it was, Mr. Johnson, because I want to make sure I can help you, right? And trust me, that's exactly what my intent is, to help you and your family. When you got it and read it and explained to you about what this will do for your mortgage, and you've got all those other coverages, why did you fill it out?
Hey, can I add to that? Because, that happens to me too sometimes. And honestly, they've turned into retirement solution appointments, or, I'll just start talking with them about, disability, critical illness.
Right.
And I've actually helped people with other avenues, like you've been talking about. It doesn't happen all the time, but you never know. Like they reached out for a reason.
Yeah, and to the point that if somebody feels like they're that covered and they've got all the other everything they need, I mean, the obvious question is, well, I mean, why the hell did you fill it out, right? So, seriously. But to your point, if that you're not saying it sarcastically, you genuinely want to know, right, why they filled it out, because you want to hear what they're going to say, because that's going to allow you to respond and maybe take a different course and direction. One of the other things we didn't talk about real quick, that we will before we leave here, this is very, very important, is like the critical advantage, the heart attack, cancer, stroke coverages that are available, that are lump sum payments. I've had several of those appointments that are just like that, where the client was telling me they think they had this and that and the third. That's cool if you pass away, but what if you have a heart attack or a stroke and you're requiring medical assistance and you're out of work, and you basically are going to drain your reserves, the cash reserves that you have. Whereas if you had this policy, you could get a $75,000 lump sum check when you got the bad news from the doctor, and none of us want that. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that are cost that your medical insurance ain't going to cover. If you got to fly from Atlanta to Houston to MD Anderson and take a relative with you to travel, and they got to leave their job and you can't work, and they're staying in a hotel eating food 3 times a day, and you're there for 3 months going through chemo at MD Anderson, medical insurance ain't paying for a lot of that. But if you have a $75,000 check that got deposited to your account, you can use the money for whatever the hell you want to, right? Car payments, gas bill, light bill, food, whatever you need it for. So that's another one of those other add-ons we talked about. That's an additional product you can help your clients with. Huge. And it's a 10-year look back, especially if somebody had cancer or a stroke or heart attack 12, 13 years ago. I've had people tell me that it financially ruined them. I said, Mr. Johnson, so what would it have been like if you had a $50,000 check when you got that bad news to pay for all those bills? He said, man, it would have changed everything for me. I filed bankruptcy. I did all. It would have changed everything. You look back on this product, it's 10 years, I can still get you approved on this, right? And it's relatively affordable, right? Now, it's heart attack, cancer, stroke, but those are the big 3 that people pass from, right? So those are things you can do on top of mortgage protection. Sandra and I both have that coverage. I've had it for 2 years. Neither one of us ever had any issues, but we have heart attack, cancers, and stroke in our families, but I got it on us just in case, right? So those things are very, very important. And those are things you can do on top of the mortgage protection, other coverages, or in lieu of. Maybe the mortgage protection wasn't the reason you were there. Just saying. But you got to ask that question. If somebody's feeding me and they're all thumping their chest about how much coverage they got, then the first thing I want to know is, fair enough, cool. I feel, felt, found, right? Look, Mr. Johnson, I know how you feel. I have a lot of clients that felt the same way, that a lot of coverages, right? But what I found is by them sharing with me what they're ultimately going to accomplish, I can better help that family, right? I know we're a little over in time, but this is important. I want to share one more scenario story with you like that, because I had a lady about 2 years ago, and they said that, or she said that she had $500,000 in policy from her job, right? But she was a single mom with 2 girls, 8 and 11, and her husband really, give me 1 second. Asia, tell him I'll be right there. I'm sorry, my daughter's texting me that the floor guys need me. Sorry, I told him I'd be done at 12. I'll be right there. Sorry, but she's telling me that she had $500,000 to work, and I told her, I said, that's better than most, right? Fair enough, okay, but that's only through your job. But if you ever got fired, laid off, quit, left your job, whatever, you lose that immediately, right? And she said, well, yeah. Or even if you retire, you're going to lose that coverage. I said, so help me understand what your objective is. She said, well, I want to make sure this house is paid off and my girls are taken care of if something happens to me. So I don't think I really need the mortgage protection thing because I've got $500,000 to my job. I said, well, let's think about that. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Let's talk about it. So you got $500,000 to your job. That's only while you work there. But let's assume that's the case, even if, God forbid, something happens to you while you're working there. You got $500,000 from them. Your house is $300,000 mortgage. And you got 2 girls that are 8 and 11. You've already told me you want them taken care of, college all the way through. So if you don't mind my asking, and there's a reason I'm asking this, how much do you make a year? And I knew about what it was. She was a marketing director at Home Depot corporate offices. She said, I make $100,000 a year. I said, fair enough. Okay, more than most, right? So what you're telling me is that your workplace policy, if you're still working here and God forbid you pass away, you're going to pay off the house and you've got 2 years worth of income to raise an 8 and 11-year-old girl. Is that enough? Because if your $500,000 policy, you take 300, pay the house off, you're left with 2, you make $100,000 a year, that's 2 years worth of lost income. Now your girls are 8 and 13. Is it enough? She said, damn, I didn't think about it like that. You're right. You know, so she had never thought about it in that regard, right? So ultimately, they're going back there to get ready. My daughter and her boyfriend. Sorry, that's all right, babe. I'm almost done. I'm over it. My bad. They got to go to the basketball court. But the point is, you got to have these conversations with people, right? So you understand that, and since I put it in those terms, now it clicked with her that her $500,000 for work wasn't enough. So she got $300 from me for the mortgage, and then she still had her $500 for work, whatever. But if I had not had that conversation to dig in a little bit, it never would have connected the dots for her. Okay. So anyway, we're way over in time. I've got floor guys upstairs, and my daughter and them are chomping at the bits to get out of here, and I'm blocking everybody. So listen, blessed to have an opportunity to talk to you guys today. Listen, have a beautiful, great weekend this weekend. Stay safe. Let's get a jump on it. 5-week turn in. Let's go get it. Love you guys. Appreciate everyone. Blessings.